I got it then.
You got it? And it's on Facebook too.
Okay, thanks.
Facebook exclusive, you bet.
All right, bye.
Okay. Welcome, welcome everyone. We are now recording to our June 9th, 2020 panel of hard conversations. And today we're going to be looking at things that agents, pros, and you in the business may, or if you haven't yet, you will deal with. And some of the maybe best practices or answers or ways that others have coped with those. So today we're going to get a quick wave from, we've got 3 people on our panel and more joining, and I know those are going to be listening to this later. We've got 20 people on here. Welcome, everyone. First, we have Virginia Rogan, David Dorris,
hey,
and Maggie Bond.
Hey, y'all.
These are 3 amazing professionals, and because we have so much content to get through today, I'm going to leave their intros to the web, and you all can reach out to them for more questions and discussion. But this morning we're going to go over hard conversations. So could you share with me 1 or 2 hard conversations that you've had or continue to have that make you uncomfortable and how you've handled them? So who would like to go first? Virginia?
I guess I'll say my hardest conversations always have to do with my compensation or commission. And, you know, I am a professional and I do get paid for my work. And so it's nothing to be ashamed of, or I think the biggest thing for everyone is to know what you charge, state it, and be confident in the work that you do, and that you earn what you, that you do earn your commission. And I have, so yeah, I guess that's my hardest conversation with people.
I think it's a good one and a biggie to kick off with. Maggie or David, do you have, what do you say when they say, will you reduce your commission or anything commission related?
I have a, go ahead, David.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. I have a policy that I do go over with people at the beginning that I probably, you know, certain family members I reduce my commission and other ones I don't. No, I'm kidding. But family members, I do reduce my commission a little bit. I mean, we're talking like 0.25, you know, not a full percent or anything like that. But most of the people who are close to me know I work really hard for my clients. But, you know, if you're a repeat customer, I will reduce my commission a little bit. That's just something I've always done, and I don't feel like I can change it. So, not a full point or anything, but more like a half point. So anyway, I do try to state that out front. I do give a half point off for veterans, and that's my gimme. So if you want a commission reduction, go join the Army. I don't know.
So do you have this in writing, or how and when do you introduce this?
Yes, I have this in my consultation package.
Excellent. So there's a page on compensation?
Yeah. In hours, which I don't stick to. I know we're going to get to, but anyway.
Excellent. Excellent. David Dorris?
Yeah, so I kind of think a theme all the way through all these questions is, as I was kind of answering them, is just you're on the same team, setting the expectations with people from the beginning that you're on the same team, there's enough to go around, and just communication all the way through. So like Maggie and Virginia are both kind of saying that. You just communicate it. It's a lot easier. I I will cut my commission in times to get deals done, but I start with like, one, if I'm this easy to negotiate with, like, you don't want me selling your house. Like, if I'm just going to drop my commission because you just asked me right here at the very beginning. And if we get the number and I do my job and we end up where you want to end up, then I should get paid full. Another piece for me is I like having a little, like, if it comes down to an inspection item and it's $700 and I'm getting 3%, it's easy to throw in that $700. If I've negotiated with you and learned this from the past, because before I would, you know, cut it on the front end or whatever for a buy and sell, then I've already given you on a $700,000 house, I've already given you maybe $7,000 if I gave you 1%. And I don't want to give that $700 anymore. And it can be like a problem. Just give me all the tools to do my job. And if I don't have them all at the beginning and you're kind of like taking things away from me before we ever get started, then it's not, I'm just not going to be able to do the best job. And most of the time I'll get the business and I also get the full commission, and we end up like not having to pitch in anything. And here and there, I won't let a deal die over $500 or $700 or $1,500. But I feel so much better doing that when I'm getting full commission and just like eat you up. Also, it's in the back of your mind the whole time. You're frustrated with that person. You're annoyed that you've done that. And that kind of takes away from that you're not on the same team and you're not communicating your frustrations because you did something to get the listing. And so it just kind of eats at you all along when that ends up being a way harder deal.
Well, can I add to that? I think you're absolutely right in that you're setting up your value on the front end. And if they already think you're worth less than the standard agent out there because you cut your commission, I mean, you have to be really careful about that. Like, you know, sometimes, I mean, I kind of jokingly say, well, which part of my job do you not want me to do? You know,
Right.
Do you not want me to spend money on advertising? Do you not want me to help you get it staged? Do you not, you know, which part are you not buying, you know?
And I'll add to that, you know, some language that I've used, of course, is I start by explaining what we recommend you offering the buyer's broker. And I use words like competitive market commission rather than standard or customary. A competitive market commission that we recommend you offer to a buyer's broker is 3%. You could offer them 4, 3 and a bonus, or 2. And let me explain to you why those things are ineffective. In the inverse of that, I work for 3%. And you'll see a lot of new agents work as buyer's agents because there's a lot less expense. So me as a listing agent, I'm incurring greater expense, and I have a full platform that we're going to go through as to what I do to earn my fee. And so sometimes I hear people use words fee versus commission. Some people ask, if you reduce your commission, this is just some training I've had over the years from other people, do you reduce your commission? No. And you just stay quiet. Under what term do you reduce your commission? Yes, I do, under 5 conditions. You're my mother, brother, sister, mother-in-law, you remember the Bobby Noreen, or you've bought or sold a home with me in the last year. And for that, I have a loyalty discount program, and it's tiered based on your price point. Under $250, it's $500. And I have that written out because you want to be careful not to get into discriminatory practices with respect to commission adjustments. So don't give away a 0.5% that I used to do. They don't know what that means. They don't know how much money that is. That is 16% of your fee. That's a lot. A 0.5 point is 16% of your fee. So I highly recommend coming up with a flat fee versus a percentage because it translates a lot better to them.
Well, I do think it's important to have it written down.
Yes.
Because it helps you to be able to verbalize it to, you know, to a customer, and to have it in your package is it just makes it clear that it's thought out. There's no, you know, this is what I do. Fewer questions.
How about this one? If there's no buyer's agent, or if there's no agent on the other side, do you get all the commission, or what happens? Raise your hand if you want to take it. I'll call on you.
So I would say, like, again, let's see it. Let's like see what happens. Because if I have a buyer that is also interested in your house, if I go anywhere else with them, I get paid 3%. So obviously you want to incentivize me to bring my buyers or anyone on my team to bring their buyer. So I don't want our listing to not be incentivized in that way. If somebody just walks in an open house and then they're offering 3% less because they're saying they don't have like, let's just deal with it as it comes and not have this setup where, because you just don't know how it's going to go down. And so I don't want to upfront say, yeah, do it for 3. Maybe I would, but you're going to do more work. And so usually if somebody just comes in an open house and maybe charge 4.5, but, and it's easy and that happens. But if it's somebody that I've been showing houses to, I want 6, because anywhere else I go, I'm going to get that.
Anyone else want to add to that? All right. I agree with that. Sometimes I stipulate it up front, especially on builders sometimes, or builders a lot of times want to know that or developers. If there's not a buyer's agent, you may cut it 0.5 or 1%, but yes, who charges a retainer fee on our panel? Raise your hand. Awesome. Okay, so just Virginia, and I see Kelly there. Virginia, can you explain, how do you explain the retainer fee? What do you call it? And would you mind sharing how much you charge?
I call it a transaction fee. I know it's called base commission, and I do let people know for buyers, I charge $150, and that basically covers the transaction fee that Village charges. For listings, I charge $350, and I'll let them know that that covers the transaction fee and a portion of their marketing. I've never had any pushback or discussion about it. As far as my rates go, if I have a returning customer that wants to, say, sell the house that I helped them buy and they're not buying something else, then I will not charge that.
Gotcha.
So
excellent.
It's a transaction fee, which I don't know that's what I call it.
If anyone weighing in on transaction fee, originally we were calling it that. Then we heard that was potentially not RESPA compliant. And it moved to other terms. I do prefer a transaction fee. Or does anyone else have a name or heard names that they use for that, or ways that they sell or share that would like to jump on?
I've only done it once. I did call it a base commission, and I explained it that it's what goes towards helping market their home to offset a portion of that cost. And she was like, do you want to check right now? I'm like, okay. It was super easy. So I was really encouraged by that.
That's a step I haven't overcome yet, is getting the check up front. I always put mine at closing, but then there are those transactions that don't go through, that it gets awkward to get some of that money that you wish to pay for photography. And one thing that hit me, Virginia, and you explained that is to say, you will own the rights to your photos, so that if for some reason you leave, then I will give those photos to you. So that's, I think, I've never used that, but it just hit me. Maggie, did you have something to add to that?
No, I was just listening. I was going to ask Kelly what she did charge for the listing.
I charged $350.
Yeah.
I charge $488 on the sell side, $388 on the buyer side.
Well, okay. Where's that magic number coming from?
Yeah.
488 and 388.
Is it like your birthday?
It's not my birthday. No, actually, from some other folks that charge those fees, looking at numbers that psychologically work and things that work for our budget. So part of that is, I want to also explain to them that I may not be the one managing your transaction. And so I have a transaction expert that's going to be managing that and stewarding this process to make sure you have the best experience. Do you think, David Dorris, that you're worth more than an agent that's 2 days in the market? And Kelly, we're not speaking to you. You're a pro in this business. It has nothing to necessarily do with time on market, but does David have more tools and resources and experience and expertise that he might be worth $488 more than me? Probably. Yeah, I think he could sell it all day. And I think I've seen different agents that use it as a party pool. Part of it goes to a bonus to a transaction manager, if that's legal or not. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to leverage that fund. You could give it to charity. I have a friend that buys bikes for every closing they have. You can think of all sorts of ideas on that. All right, we're going to move on. Let's see here. Handling a sale amidst a contentious divorce or a death. I think, Virginia, you mentioned you had a listing from a death. Tell me about how you handled that and how you navigated that.
Well, it's not, there was nothing contentious or anything like that. But there are moving pieces when you have a death and a lot of it is title. And really, I work with Rudy Title, and they walked us through the entire thing, not only me, but my client, just to let them know what all needed to be done to be able to sell this property. And I think, you have to go through 10 care and make sure that, everybody is signed that needs to sign, all the family members, is there a will? Is it probated? So I'm not versed in that. That's not my wheelhouse, but I was very happy to have Rudy working with me. And so that's what you need whenever there's a death. And I've never worked with anyone in a divorce situation. So
I have. Who else? Maggie or David, divorce or death?
Divorce.
Okay, let's hear it.
Actually in, a death too.
Yeah.
And what, and I have lawyer people in my phone that I can call and ask them probate questions, and of course connect the family with the probate attorney so they can really get, and obviously the title company. So they know exactly what to expect, and it does take longer. There's a lot, everything, especially right now. I've got a friend who's doing one, and it's taking about it's going to end up being at least 2 or 3 months extra just because of the probate work they have to do.
Yeah. David, anything on in that experience?
I mean, yeah, on the death side, it's dealing with getting people that are experts outside of kind of what we do, because there's a lot of complicated pieces. So dealing with that. And then on the divorce side, I try and just communicate with the people and figure out what the goal is, what's the price, because you got some headbutting already going on usually. And you're kind of this middleman that can easily become a problem quickly. So I just try and figure out hey, what's the goal? What price are we trying to get? This is what we need to do. It's just all about being clear and communicating that everybody wants to be out of this house with this price, and this is how we go about that. And so we need it to be picked up for showings, and sometimes you have that where one side doesn't want to sell, and you just have to I've had that before. We just had to deal with that they wouldn't get the house ready, and it was always a mess because the wife didn't want to sell and the husband did. And we got it sold, but it was harder. And they took less for the house, but that was, the court ordered that they had to sell it. So
right.
Did it.
I would say another thing on the divorce situation. Yeah, the court. So I've tried to get kind of everybody in an email chain. So it's not texting, phone calls from one party about the other party, trying to keep it in one avenue of communication. And from the outside, really from the very beginning, stating in the first part of the email, this is what the court is ordering us to do. So it's not me, and it's not necessarily what you want, and what you want is part of it, but we've got to do it this way. And that the one situation that was pretty contentious, that helped me. So
Thank you.
Keeping it all in email.
I think that's a great point, and something I want to echo that David said, and I would do it in email, but you're also in that consultation, especially I've had to do the consultation separately because they didn't want to see each other. And then there was a child involved who was staying at the house, and some of your counseling skills will certainly come to favor, but I think David does this a lot in his work and negotiation, is what is the goal? My role is to get to the goal.
Yes.
And so it's really not, I have no dog in the fight. I have no preference here, really. I just want to help make this piece of the puzzle as stressless as possible. That's my job in this puzzle. And so the way we complete this is we help get the home sold for the highest and best price in the timeline that you want to. So love that. Thank you both for sharing that. It is challenging sometimes in death situations too. There's might be some other heirs or parties that need signatures, and be mindful you might be running around. I've had a friend that even went to jail to get some signatures to buy a property in East Nashville one. So you do what you got to do. That's part of our role here. All right. Any questions so far? You can add those to the chat. Let's see here. Sylvia says, in the same category, owner is alive but has dementia. Has a guardian who has owner of attorney. Power of attorney. Thank you. Power of attorney, but not for real estate sale. Has to go through a judge.
Aren't we talking about firing a client in a minute?
We are. Nice segue, David Dorris. Is this a question? It looks complicated, Sylvia.
Can I say that Lon Hurst is a probate whiz?
Oh,
he's gone to multitude of trainings and certifications to become an expert in that field. So he's a fellow agent. If you don't know him, LONHURST. He's a fabulous person as well. So he might be a good person to hit up on some of those technical things, but always consult your friendly attorney.
yes. All right, let's move into firing clients and whatever creative PC way we want to talk about letting people go besides telling them to go F themselves, which I've done once before. It didn't go well. They were my neighbor. So David, why don't you kick us off with, I know you've had to let a client go, and pick one that was less than comfortable and share how you did that, even if it just included, I'm out.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of go with the it's not you, it's me approach. I don't want to burn a bridge, but it just isn't working. And I think there's somebody out there who could serve you better and get you what you want. I just don't think I'm the person for you. And that's been with people that are just have expectations maybe that I can't meet. And I really, honestly, like when I think about it, it's like I can't meet their expectations of how quickly they want to see something maybe when they send it, and then what they're looking for, I don't even feel like is real. And are they even really seriously going to pull the trigger on something? So at the beginning of my career, I would have been really nervous to do that. But I think coming back to the fact that like your gut feeling a lot of times on that is right, and you're wasting your time. You're not going to end up getting paid for your time. And it's scary because it's like, oh, they're going to go buy something like tomorrow and I'm going to miss it. I mean, I've had clients where it's like, oh, we're almost there. And then when you let them go, one, they may go do that. And then you kind of will have to write that off to the fact that they probably still were never going to do that with you. Like, they may be doing that to prove to you that they are going to buy something with someone else. But I've felt good about it every time I've done it, and actually never had somebody go immediately buy something or sell their house if they were just like crazy overpriced and weren't being reasonable, getting their house ready and being where we need to be. So
awesome. Maggie, were you going to jump in on that?
Oh, I'm just nodding. So, so it sounds familiar. I mean, I have one, but Virginia may have one too. So I don't want to.
Virginia,
I had one client that I was considering moving along, and we finally did close on something. But I think in the end, it really is saving you time. And if you do decide to let someone move along, just keep moving forward. Don't look back and get another client.
I like language, move along. And what I would encourage all of you, as you're mastering your craft, I don't love the word scripts, but I do love intentionality of language. And typically when I go off script, it tends to get a little loose in the turns sometimes. And so having intentional language regarding, like David said, I think I'm not the right person for you. Or I think it's time that we move along and for you to reach your goals, just things like that. And don't be shy or afraid to write it down, record yourself in a mirror on your phone and try it out on people to see how it lands for them.
Well, and I think too that there are nice ways to do anything. And I had one guy who adored the guy, but he's really kind of a hothead. And we were looking at property. I sold his property last May, and we looked for several months. And he kept writing contracts and then getting really fussy with the sellers and pulling out. And finally, and part of the problem too is that we were FaceTiming his fiance in Cleveland. And I finally had to say to him, you're getting really emotional about this, and it's an emotional purchase. And I don't think that you should go into this engagement trying to buy a house with your fiance 8 hours away. I'm going to be your marriage counselor for a second. Get your fiance down here for a weekend and we'll go look at houses. And he was really taken aback by that. I said, but right now I don't want to show you any more houses. This isn't working. And lo and behold, that was September. I felt like I kind of fired him and said, you're not ready to buy a house, and you're setting yourself up for a bad situation with your wife to buy a house without her ever seeing it. And so they just called me last week and said they're both going to be in town next week, and then we're going to go. So, it didn't end in a bad way, but I put the brakes on it. I couldn't do it anymore, but so anyway, they're going to be back, and I'm going to review with them how it's going to work. So
I love that. Yeah. Reviewing expectations and process. Sometimes I notice like the buyer starts taking control, and the next thing I know, before I know it, I'm like running their race. And I have to say, I think we need to pause here, even if it's in the middle of a home, and just say, I want to review kind of how this process goes best to make best use of your time. I think you're getting distracted, and I use that word a lot. I think you're being distracted by choices or the fear of missing out on something else. And so, the process of purchasing is more about elimination than finding the perfect one. And then I go into all of our techniques on the showing process and how to get to the goal. So great points. Great points. Anything else on that? I know we're rapid fire today. It's hard conversations. So let's see, price reductions. How do you handle price reductions when the seller doesn't want to reduce the price? It's overpriced. You took the damn thing overpriced, or it was priced right and the market tanked, and all of a sudden we need to start dropping the price like it's hot. Who would like to jump in on that and share how you handle price reductions?
Drop it like it's hot. Well, one of the tools that I love is on Showing Time, where you can pull showings, the number of showings within a given period of time in a certain price point. And if we're not, on a particular listing, so if we're not getting those showings, it's because we're not apples to apples with some of these other options for buyers. But also on the front end, again, it goes back to expectations. What does the fabulous Bobby Noreen say? Expectations are met when they're clearly understood by all parties. So I will tell them on the front end, we've got our period of our maximum visibility is the first 10 days, 2 weeks. It's definitely 30 days. And if we haven't gotten a contract and our showings are slowing down, this is how this is going to work. But I will tell them, I want to put in our listing agreement that we're going to have a price reduction in an agreed date, whatever, 14 days, whatever, depending on the circumstances. And usually people will say, okay, well, let's just try it my way for 14 days. If you give them that win, try it their way for 14 days or 10 days, whatever you want to figure that out as. I think they're really more amenable to, okay, we tried it my way, it didn't work, I'm going to listen to my realtor now. So that has helped me a lot to actually put it in there on the front end.
I'll try.
Oh, go ahead. Nope, go ahead.
I was going to say, I've never actually put it in the listing agreement, but whenever I talk with clients about listing their property, they always get a range. Your property is going to sell somewhere in this range. We'd love for it to sell at the top of the range. And if it doesn't, be prepared. Give them both of those numbers to know what that high and the low would be. And how does that low work with their net? And, go ahead and get them to figure out in their minds, what is the lowest net they're going to get. But then also, you're also focusing on, if they do have an equity gain, always focus on what they're gaining. Hopefully that's the situation, which it typically has been, but, you don't want them thinking that they're losing money when they're still making money on the house.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I mean, again, goes back to setting expectations and being on the same team, understanding what your client's goals are, and really making it clear, like, I don't control the market. I'm going to get it looking the best that it can look, and we're going to market it and get it out there to all the buyers in town, and then they're going to decide what it's worth. And so, like, here are the comps. You have the data to show showings in those price ranges, and I think data helps because numbers aren't emotional. But I think that you just have to be like, if the goal is like, well, we aren't going to sell under this number, we're going to keep it, or we're not going to move, or we're going to rent. Be prepared to, like, okay, that, hey, we're not going to drop price anymore. We can keep sitting on the market. Or you can go ahead and pull it off. We're not going to get the number you wanted. Sometimes people want to, if I could get this, then I would do that. But it's really understanding, what are we up to, right? If I can get this, then I'm going to do that. Or I got to sell it because we've already bought a house, or our house is under construction, but we're not going to move in till whenever. Then kind of how this timeline is going to work. Then you can kind of run with pricing that way.
Yeah, that just happened to me. And I have a house that I've listed, and it's been in the market too long, but this area is tricky, and it's one of the nicest houses in the area, which can be hard. And they decided they were going to try to rent it, and they got it rented in like a matter of less than a week. But they also said, we really want to sell the house, but right now we need to have some income coming in. But when we're ready, when this lease is up, we want to relist it with you. I mean, you just have to work with people, and they couldn't just let it sit there very much longer. So, and we reduced the price twice.
And when you're for that, you're going to get the listing later too. When you're like not wanting them to rent it and you're trying to, then they feel that, and then they'll choose somebody else. And when a year rolls around, but when you're kind of on the same team, there's no reason to go anywhere else.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Moving right along. Let's, how about, I'm not, my friend is an agent and I might use them. Maggie, I see you smirking.
Well, I think that if they want fair and professional representation, they owe it to themselves to interview a couple of people and interview their friend the same way and say, look, I know you want the best for me, and I want the best for me. And I think it's happened to me. It's happened to everybody. If you say it hasn't happened to you, that's just not true. So there are good sides and bad sides to that. Some friends, I'd be like, you're crazy and I love you, but you go right ahead, so there are two sides. So but I also, and I think most of my friends know me, I'm a nurturer and a mom, and I'm going to take such good care of my people that most of my friends are like, yeah, no doubt, I want you to help me. So, but it's also just depends on the crazy friend. Yeah. How upset are you going to get?
Virginia?
I don't know if that's helpful.
Well, I was just going to say the flip to that is, you're my friend, therefore I'm not going to use you. I want to use someone who is, arm's length.
Yeah, unbiased, and may not influence or affect your relationship, because my experience, there's going to be some tough conversations that are going to come through this process. And my experience is it's sometimes hard to hear that from a friend, or the friend may be cautious to share things with you about the condition of your home that isn't personal, but we need to address in order to get the highest and best price. So I can assure you, you're going to get an unbiased, candid approach from me with one goal, and that is yours. David, anything else on that?
So, I mean, it's a decent moment to move away from that if you want to. I've had a little bit of that where somebody, wanted to use me or somebody else, and when they wanted to look at houses and how it was going to work out, and they didn't really want to use my team, they wanted it to be me. It was an opportunity to say, I think that person could be better. You should just use them. And I totally understand. And I'm still here, like, call me if something, you know, comes up. And then it just, I mean, I just feel like I'll usually know if it's something I want to fight for, then I'm going to fight for it and explain why I think they should go with me. And if it's something I don't, then, and given that advice, then you may get them next time. Because I've just found so many times where even I had that where I sold a guy a house and then he bought a house with a friend because they had sent it to him on MLS, and I was frustrated, and I didn't tell him how mad I was, and I've sold multiple more homes with him, and that was just whatever, a mistake he made, or maybe not. I mean, he did well on that house. So
Yeah.
Well, and perhaps they will always refer you too.
Yeah.
You know, if if a friend doesn't want to use you personally, but they would feel good about referring you.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Another way to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Virginia, you know, talking about repairs and somebody not wanting to, a seller doesn't want to make repairs. We get a list in, and Virginia, I know you had a client that I think you said wanted to kind of bully the seller for a poor HVAC system. Tell us about that and how you handled that.
Oh, well, it was a situation where the HVAC was working, but also on its last legs. And she wanted the seller to 100% replace it with top of the line, what she wanted. And I honestly didn't feel that it was a reasonable request. And it made me very anxious because I felt myself siding with the seller rather than my client. And, interestingly, it ended up where she got her way. And, good for her. And we still stay in touch. But she was a very tough client, and it just didn't do things the way that I would have done them. And, the listing agent and I agreed that I needed to take her to lunch. So anyway, it was a hard conversation, and others may not agree on this, but I think in a real estate transaction, you really, you want both parties to come away happy, and both parties have to give. And, both parties, you can't just have one party taking.
Right.
And
right.
I don't want to work with it's hard for me to work with a client who feels that way.
Right.
That they're just going to take. And some people might be better at that than I am, but that was a hard transaction that I had.
So one thing, I have had the same exact thing, excuse me. And then you could insert whatever the repair is, not just HVAC. It could be something really ridiculous. Or, I want this dining room table. Well, you can't have that dining room table. It was my great aunt's. I'm related to Martha Washington, and it was her dining room table, and you can't have it. No, I want that dining. You're like, no. But I think this kind of applies to real life too. There are two kinds of people, and you have to tell your client, the hard client, you know what, in real estate negotiations, it's better to get what we want with a carrot than a stick. And let's figure out how to be nice, ask nicely and give nicely, than be demanding and hard, because, we're trying to make everybody win, just like you said. And again, that's one of those things where you go back to the very beginning of the conversations with these people, with your clients. I want you to meet your goals, but we can get there in a civil way. And okay. I feel like most people really wake up and go, oh yeah, okay, it makes sense. So
yeah. I think with those people that like to negotiate too, you have like showing them you can kind of see around corners for the contract. There's another set of negotiations and another set. And so I always, like, when we're negotiating on price at the beginning and we're 5,000 apart, and that person shows their cards right then that they're a negotiator, they want to go back 2,500 different. And you say, look, let's just let this side have the win here, and then we'll do the inspection. If the house is perfect, we'll all be high-fiving. But if there are issues, this person won't be mad at us
Right.
already. So then we'll have some goodwill to negotiate again. And same thing on appraisal. Like if it came back low, like we'll have goodwill. You want to stay in the good graces within the negotiation, because there are a lot more hurdles than just price at the very beginning. And you can kind of sniff that negotiator out early on when they want to negotiate over a small little bit, or $500 difference or whatever, you just kind of.
Yep.
So
that's great. That's great stuff, David. Thank you. And all of you. We got a question from Zachary. Zach, if you have an experienced buyer that doesn't want to sign the buyer rep, and he says, I know we've sort of touched on it when we talked about commissions, transactions fees, but what are your thoughts? I know we've all had the buyer, why do I need to sign that? Or I'm not comfortable signing that at this time. Who can take that?
I'll take it. I never get a buyer rep signed. So till the end, I feel like to me, if it's a handshake and you explain, what the deal is, then it almost means more to that person. Like they're going to have to go back on their word. Cause I've never been in a situation where I'm like waving the buyer rep saying like, I wish I had the buyer rep. I'd hold it up and force them to pay me. I now know who that person is and would be really frustrated, but I've never even really had a situation where somebody's just totally screwed me. I've felt a little screwed before, but that would have happened anyways with the buyer rep, because I'm not going to go hire a lawyer and go after them. So to me, I would just say like, hey, so this is the deal. Like if I'm going to start showing you around, we're working together. And if I'm going to spend my time doing that now with people on my team, and you think somebody's a flake or whatever, it's a good thing. You can kind of lean back on like, my company makes me do this, or my team makes me do this, just to feel out that person. Like, are they serious? But if it's like a friend or somebody that's been referred to you or somebody that you know, I just feel like it's better to go, hey, look, I'm about to spend all this time with you. I'm not going to get paid for any of it. I'm going to get paid when you choose a house. And I know you're going to choose a house, because I think people do think like, well, you're just going to try and sell me a house. Like, no, I want you to find the best house. I know eventually you're going to buy a house, right? That's the plan. Then eventually I'm going to get paid. I'm not really worried about when that is. And then they stick with you because they kind of understand they've made that commitment.
Anything to add there, Virginia? I saw you came off mute.
Yeah, I let people know in the beginning that the buyer representation is what legally allows me to represent them. Do they sign it in the beginning? Maybe not, but they do. We have a conversation about compensation and how everybody gets paid. And with buyers, I always let them know, chances are you're not going to pay anything to have me represent you. However, when you sell, you will be paying both sides of the transaction. Obviously, that's always negotiable, but they see that buyer rep agreement. I mean, that is one of the first things I do is show a potential client all of the documents that they have to sign, because that's enough to scare anybody into thinking you need representation. And that's part of it. And I said, you will be asked to sign this, at least at the time that documents are prepared for you. And I think with them, it kind of goes back to the goodwill thing. If they understand, that they are going to be asked to sign it, and that how compensation works, then they understand if you're taking time to show them around, hopefully they have enough respect for you that they will follow through.
And when I'm following my rules best, I explain to them the two things that we need to do to get started in this process. You need to get pre-qualified with the lender, and we need to hire each other. And so this buyer's representation agreement is really a loyalty agreement. And here's how it works. You want me under agreement just as much as I want you, because I am legally obligated to bring coming soons to my clients that are under a buyer's representation agreement versus the ones that aren't. That is the truth, folks. You are required. You have a fiduciary responsibility to bring those to those people. If you're bringing them to people that don't have agreements and do, you could be found to be discriminatory in that sense and not representing or giving your clients. So to me, that's the easiest ones. When I heard that, I was like, I get it. So coming soons and off markets and all those things, that's part of them hiring you. This isn't to lock you down. If at any time you decide that we're not a good fit or vice versa, this goes like this.
Right.
So I make that very clear to them, and it tries to take all the pressure off of that.
Well, I think, can I add into there, Teddy? I think too, I go over it like Virginia does as well. And I really want to explain to people, you know, the document, this is working with a real estate professional, and going over that with anybody, even, you know, I know we use that for an unrepresented buyer, but I review that for represented buyers as well, because they need to understand my role in their life. And I'm their advocate, and I'm looking out for them and showing, you know, like you said, sending them properties they may otherwise not even know about, and really focusing on their end goals. And otherwise, I'm just kind of out there talking about real estate to somebody and chatting about it, and not advising them or giving them all the real goods. So I probably bat 80% on getting it signed at the very, very beginning. Because I'll ask them straight up, do you feel comfortable working with me after we've had, if it's somebody I don't know, do you feel comfortable with me and working, you know, with my processes? And do you think that we'd be a good fit? I'd love to partner with you, but this solidifies our partnership so I can really roll up my sleeves for you. So.
I love it. I love it. Excellent. All right. We're closing in here to our conclusion. We've got 9 minutes left. Talk about boundaries and working hours. How have you handled people that setting boundaries around your work hours, or people that decide they want to text you late at night or at a time which is not ideal to you? And I want to hear from each of you, because you all, I'm sure, have different styles on that. So why don't we start with Mr. Dorris?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to communicating up front with what your schedule looks like. I mean, I let my clients know I got 4 kids. I usually put my phone down from 6 to 9, and some nights I don't even get back to it. So I'll definitely like get with you in the morning on that, but it's just kind of part of my routine. We will usually have somebody on the team kind of helping, so that person could be somebody to contact. But when you're in the middle of a negotiation, sometimes that changes, right? It's like we make an offer, and I mean, there's exceptions to that, but when you set the expectation, then I've just found that I could find myself frustrated at 8 o'clock dealing with somebody before I would set expectations. And then I had to look in the mirror, because it's like, well, how do they know? And it's because I'm in the middle of doing something at the house and I'm busy, and this is like a frustrating thing. And I didn't set any expectation with them before. So they're just reaching out, wanting an answer on something. And I'm like, how could they be texting me at this time? So I think I tell my clients, you can text, just don't be frustrated if I don't get back to you for a couple hours on something. And if we're in the middle of a negotiation and we've been back and forth the whole time, then yeah, I'll see that through. But if you're just a buyer who we're looking for something, I let people know. And that's why we have, for me, that's why I have a team or someone else to help. So you can probably get somebody, but at that time of night, and nothing is that urgent. So.
Yeah. Maggie, how about you?
Oh, y'all. I work all the time. It's bad. It is bad because then
boundaries, party of one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just terrible. Don't take my advice.
Listen, I appreciate the honesty, because I find I break my own rules. You know, I think there's that saying, you teach people how to treat you. And if they text you at 8 at night and you respond, guess what you gave them?
Mm-hmm. Permission. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and that is painful. I mean, I can't even let a call go to voicemail. I'll be on the call with somebody for 5 seconds, go, can you hold on? I mean, that is me and the Bobby Noreen. It drives me crazy when I'm on the phone with her. But I find myself doing it. And it's like, what is your problem here, Ted? Let it go to voicemail. Like, it's not, I don't even know what it is. It's just a bad habit. Virginia, I know you have some great practices here. Please help us.
Well, in the very beginning, I let people know what my hours are. And they're 8:30 to 6, and by appointment on weekends and evenings. But I do respond to emails absolutely once a day, and I'll be back with you as soon as possible. And, you know, I try, even though I work in the wee hours of the morning, in the evening, you know, late hours of the evening, I try not to communicate with people during that time because they think I'm working at that time. And so I try to keep it during the day, unless you have an appointment. And then obviously if we're negotiating something, we can go all 24 hours if we're negotiating. But I clearly let them know that up front.
Excellent. Yes. And I think it's wonderful you have them written. I did move to a point where I have a communication policy, and I'm happy to share that. But and leaving your hours on voicemail, I think, can help train people as well as to when you work. I had an idea I shared with Rebecca because I got tired of this last week. We had agents sending repair amendments at 10:30 at night, and my buyer was already asleep. So guess what? We blew deadlines multiple times that week. And I'm toying with the idea of putting all deadlines are 7 p.m. instead of 11:59 in the special steps, because I think it's ludicrous that you're going to miss your child's first steps because somebody didn't decide to get paperwork in before 7. I really think it should be 6, but I don't know. I mean, I may need some help on how to craft and sell that, but excuse me. That's kind of where I'm moving to on those topics. So anyone else have ideas on hours? Anybody that's on the call today? Or any other questions? All right, letting team members go. It's always a touchy one. Or having to, you just do it's not you, it's me, David?
Nah. No, it's you if I let you go.
Harsh.
I think to me that's like numbers aren't emotional. Like I just have to sit down, and most of the time it's just not working, and they know it's not working too. And so it's like, hey, this is what it costs for you to be on my team, and this is what you've brought in, and you wouldn't do that deal. Like, how can I do that? And that's always worked. I mean, I've had, I guess, to the other side of it, to where it really works, and somebody, but that you're not letting that person go. They're kind of making that decision. But when you're letting somebody go, the only issues I've had are it's not working financially. So I guess you could have somebody who's not being a team player and causing a bunch of problems, and that would be a different conversation if they were really profitable and then they were doing all that. But I haven't had that yet.
Awesome. All right, couple of few others. I don't want to be listed in the MLS. Anybody had that? No? Okay.
I had someone who didn't want to sign in their yard.
Okay. Did you say no problem, or how'd you handle it?
I said no problem. And, we put it on the MLS, and that was okay. I was okay with it. They preferred it. And so.
The national stats say it's in the top 3 things that help sell your home. So I remind them of that data, but can respect that they may not want the neighbors to know. The internet's a lot more private than a sign in the front yard. How about we want you to be present for all showings? We want you to come turn the lights on. Oh, we never got that.
I think that's important. I've been like previewing a bunch of stuff recently, and I just think that's a huge miss with agents that aren't doing that, because when you go look at something, you're trying to find light switches, and it distracts you. It's just like a bunch of pictures on the fridge or anything else. You can't get a room lit and turn it off, turn it back on. It's a 3-way switch. And I think getting the lights on is important. So if your client lives there, if they can do it, then that's great. If you can get there, somebody.
Are you ready for the next business, my friends? It just hit. People are delivering signs. People are
turning on lights.
You're a new agent. You be a light switcher. And whoever wants to reserve the domain, you be a light switcher. You charge $20. I'll pay it all day long, and so will many. To go
Buddy,
there.
Let's talk.
All right. Take it offline, Kelly. Reserve the domain. Go to GoDaddy. We're moving on. Next topic. Sign the MBA, press hard, third copy's yours. I don't know. That's all I have for the show today, I think. I'm going to post some articles and things in the chat for those that I probably have too much data here to post, so I'm going to have to cull that down here a little bit. Any other questions before we conclude here today? I'd like to give everybody on the panel a huge thank you for your time and involvement. Everybody give them the sign language clap there. I'm going to post a couple of articles here that may pique some other interest as well. And if you want to save anything from the chat, you can hit the 3 dots and hit the chat there, and you can hit save chat. That is how we will do that. So